Terrific. Well, thanks everybody. I'm glad we got a little bit of a break, a little bit of movement, and hopefully a bit of coffee. So now I want to introduce the moderator of our second panel. He is an ASCAP and Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter and producer, and a 3-time CMA Triple Play Award winner. He's over 25 hit songs to his credit for artists like Carrie Underwood, Chris Young, Luke Bryan, Rascal Flatts, Dan and Shay, Miranda Lambert, and so many more. That's a pretty significant list. He's also a great advocate for songwriters and has been a huge part of ASCAP advocacy in Washington, D.C. Please welcome Chris DeSTEFANO.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a captivating exploration of the intersection between music and artificial intelligence. Today we embark on the journey that transcends the boundaries of human creativity and technical innovation, delving into a realm where machines harmonize with melodies, algorithms compose symphonies, and technology becomes the maestro of a new age. Our panel is a testament to the inexorable march of progress where music, a universal language that has resonated through the ages, finds itself entwined with the cutting-edge capabilities of artificial intelligence. In this digital age, the energy between music and the synergy between music and AI has ushered in a renaissance in the way that we create, experience, and appreciate this art form, from the pioneering works of algorithmic composition to the transformative potential of AI in music production and curation. The possibilities seem limitless, they seem endless. We're honored to have with us a panel of experts and visionaries who will share their insights, expertise, and visions for the future. Today, we invite you to join us in unraveling the mysteries of this fascinating union, to explore the AI-driven symphonies, melodies, and rhythms that enrich our lives, and to consider the profound impact of this partnership on the future of music. So without further ado, let us embark on the sonic and cerebral voyage as we delve deep into the harmonious world of music and AI. I want to thank ChatGTP for that. Thank you for that intro. All right, I'm going to introduce our panelists now. Two incredible people I call friends now. Our first, she was named one of Nashville Briefing's 25 songwriters to watch of 2023. Songwriter artist, she has been featured by Billboard, Rolling Stone, American Songwriter. The Big Machine music songwriter has garnered songwriting credits for platinum-selling superstars Keith Urban and Carly Pearce, as well as newcomers Mackenzie Carpenter, Cassie Ashton, Seaforth, Roman Alexander. She has penned for Maddie and Tay's current radio single, Hearts They Didn't Break. As an independent artist, she has recently released 2 singles, Probably Shouldn't and Halloween on Christmas Eve. Love that. As a follow-up to her debut EP, Younger Version of Myself, produced by Grammy-winning songwriter Luke Laird, raised in Southern California, she graduated from Belmont University and became the first ever recipient of the Miranda Lambert Women's Creator Fund. Please, ladies and gentlemen, make a whole lot of noise for Anna Vaus. Our next panelist, music producer, mentor, and artist. He blends industry experience with passion. From Kendrick Lamar to MTV, his legacy extends beyond beats, empowering thousands via YouTube and his book. Now he's exploring the synergy between AI and music's future. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Curtis King.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, so let's kick this off. All right. So I'm curious, how? Tell me how you both have used AI in your everyday processes. Curtis, do you want to start?
I'll let you go first.
So I feel like AI has just been this word that like floated around for a while that was like, what is this thing? And I just decided to experiment with it and started to use ChatGPT specifically to just throw out like lines for a song or titles of a song and try and figure out how to tweak it and prompt it to get the best song possible, just out of curiosity, really.
So once again, my name is Curtis King, and when it came to AI, I went through probably a very similar process as a lot of artists, with a lot of skepticism at first, because of just the way it was presented to me. But as I started to use it, I started to realize that the one thing they told me as an independent artist I needed was a team. It's not always easiest to come across reliable people for that team. And so I started to use basically these platforms as almost independent contractors for certain tasks, specific tasks. So Canva became my graphic designer because it has templates that are generated by graphic designers. ChatGPT became the assistant I didn't know I always needed, right? So as I started to utilize it in that way, I started to say, you know what? I love these tools because they're able to at least give me a framework and a foundation, which sometimes can take you out of your creative space if you spend too much time with structure. And from there, it's been fun now.
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, you both touched on really efficiency, right? I mean, it comes down to how can we, you know, there's the finite amount of hours in the day, and how can we just be more efficient with our day-to-day, and you know, and to go to your point, Anna, the you know, my kind of tiptoeing into AI initially, I guess, was through some of the plugins that I use in my digital audio workstation, you know, and they're claimed to be AI. I didn't quite know what that meant. You know, I use a software called Isotope, and it was always like, you know, hey, you can do AI-powered mastering. And like, what does that really mean? Well, it literally means that, where it's kind of intelligently finding out kind of your tendencies as a mix engineer, or what your tracks typically are going through, and it kind of learns from that. And then as you know, as you go forward, it all of a sudden, like, things start to sound a little better, and you go, wow, this is legit. It's really kind of taken my tracks up to another level. So, I mean, what do y'all feel like it's specifically, like, what it does really well for you on a day-to-day, like, that you found like a real harmony with, like, hey, this is a tool that I can use, you know, in a spur of the moment situation where I can kind of go, hey, this is something I need right now.
Well, Curtis, I feel like you touched upon this. A lot of the administrative tasks and the things that I find myself and other independent artists going, oh, I have to post on social media every day, and what am I going to come up with every single day? So to plug into ChatGPT, help me come up with a 30-day social media campaign to promote my new song, Halloween on Christmas Eve. And it will give you, you know, a 30-day campaign with video ideas. And so I think a lot of that stuff that is not what sets my soul on fire, which is sitting in a room and sharing my human experiences in a song, like, to be able to have an assistant, for lack of a better word, is what I think is amazing about it. And just tweaking things like my bio or a press release or things like that, again, doesn't set my soul on fire, and that I, as an independent artist, don't have the budget to hire out at the moment, is incredible.
So there was 2 quotes that I heard at the beginning of the year before AI became, I guess, what it is today, that kind of helped me as a creative make peace with it. The first one was that you won't be replaced by AI, but you'll be replaced by somebody who uses AI. Okay, I'll let that process for a little bit. In addition to what I'm already doing, it's taking care of tasks. I represent a tribe of independent artists that, instead of calling it independent, we just call ourselves DIYers. Not DIYer in the sense of running around chaotic and not knowing what to do at 10%, but being self-efficient and starting it, because sometimes you don't get all that support and help when you're first starting off. So you have to get it started. I became my first video editor, my first graphic designer, or my first pitching to blogs when that was a relevant thing. So I did it myself. I got started. And when I started to get cash flow, then I could delegate it. The beautiful thing that I'm noticing with AI is that it's helping me to spend more time with the parts of the creative process that I love the most. I know a lot of us say we love every single step of the process equally. I don't know how true that is. I know it's not for me, right? Even in my passion that I've developed for video editing, I love watching the end result a million times. I cannot stand the chopping sometimes of the ums and the ahs. So having that process kind of be expedited allows me to spend more time with the coloring, the LUTs and the composition and things like that. And I'm feeling like Childish Gambino made this point about Elvis in particular. He said, how much better, and I'm sorry if this offends anybody, how much better would his acting have been if music didn't take as long as it took to be created? So I had to sit with that, and I said, now we're in a place where people are doing multiple things at a high clip because some of these parts of the process are being automated. So in that sense, I feel like we have an opportunity as creatives, if utilizing it and not really just leaning all the way into it, we could evolve at a rate quicker than we've ever seen before. At least that's my theory.
Yeah, I mean, there really is, there is something that's happening. It's certainly a shift in modality and as to how we're able to create. Do you all find that so far in using these tools that there's an ethical line that you haven't crossed yet that you choose not to? Because that's always been like kind of a thing for me, where it's like, okay, obviously I can go in and I can type out, hey, create me a lyric like this, like such and such. Even myself, I go, hey, write me a lyric like Chris DeSTEFANO, and it'll write an entire lyric to a song. But there may be a catchphrase in there that's whatever, the 3 or 4 words that you go, hey, I can hang a song on that phrase right there, which I feel like that's kind of our everyday life, right? We go through life and you hear somebody say something and you go, oh, that sounds like a song. That could be the my next song, whatever. Where we start writing from that idea. So there's almost like ethically, I don't really have a problem with that. It's just kind of like going, okay, this is just everyday life, just kind of in that it's just coming to me in a different way. Do y'all have like a boundary that you kind of go, I don't think that I'd really necessarily cross that line, but up to this point, I'm good?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big feelings person, and I rely heavily on my gut feeling, I would say. And I think, to me, and maybe this is terrible for my business, and I will regret this 20 years from now, my favorite part about creating something is that feeling when you're having a conversation with someone and they say that phrase that you're talking about, and you go, oh, I have to write that down, or I will not be able to get through the rest of this conversation without internally exploding, because I want to write that as a song. And so for me, like, figuring out what that puzzle of a song is and putting my own experiences and feelings and emotions into it is one of the best feelings in the world. And I don't think that I would be fulfilled in the same way by just taking that phrase, giving it to a computer, and seeing what comes out of it. If someone else is, I think it's up to every individual person to decide where their line is. But I think for me, it just comes from, like, being an artist and being a songwriter is hard enough every day in this industry. So I have to do the parts of it that I love, and I don't really want to like give that to a computer to take the joy away from me. But it's different for everyone. That's just where my line is.
So ironically, the company that was responsible for making a more formal introduction to the amazing people at ASCAP was a company called Lyric Studio. You might have even seen my face in some of the ads. And that was probably the first time I got met with AI that I was a little bit uncomfortable at first. Because if you don't know what it does, it'll feed you song lyrics and lines based upon what you give it. For somebody who writes for 20 years, I love the writing process. So the idea of having my life be told by a computer didn't sit well with me until I had to figure out a way that worked for my style of creativity. And that's what I noticed, is that for every creative, that's your responsibility. And you have to do it, but you get to do it because you're a creative by nature. So when I look at these things, I just look at them as new obstacles, just like during the songwriting process, there's new obstacles. Any objection that I could have, I could give you a real life representation of it. People say, well, how dare you get fed lines from AI? I remember studio sessions with my buddies where they would say, don't say it like that, say it like this. And they weren't asking for writing credits, it was just a suggestion. So when I looked at it from that standpoint, I realized like a lot of that stuff was really personal that I had in terms of the process. And then when I had the epiphany, I was like, I really don't like some of the part of this process. I've been convinced that I need to love every one of it equally because these are my babies, AKA my songs. But when I really diced it down, I think what it's doing is helping me to spend more time with the part of the process that I love the most. And I feel grateful to be able to live in a time like this. So ethics-wise, that was one layer of it. I will add another one, and I won't go too deeply into that, but there was a rapper, AI rapper, that got generated, and he happened to be from a different background than his creator. He was using a lot of cultural sensitive words. Just put it like that. A lot of culturally sensitive words. And I started looking at this character that is, was on TikTok going viral, and I'm like, okay, that could be an issue. Because now, it's almost getting into a place of mimicry. But I love the fact that we're also living in a time where social media allows a platform to somebody to just ask questions, and then that thing quickly gets fixed. So I think everything is happening at the right time. So ethics aside, I think I still love what it brings. The pros outweigh the cons.
Yeah, no, I think that's all great. I think there's a couple layers to it for me personally that when you touch on the exploitation of ideas that were not generated from myself or my collaborators, that to me is kind of crossing a line. That's why we do this, right? Because it gives us that fulfillment of, hey, we created this. I look back to some of the, couple of I'm a big film composer fan. I've studied film music in college, and I look back to some amazing of the late great James Horner scores. Being hugely influenced by Gustav Holst, or you listen to John Williams, incredible composer. You hear Brahms and his compositions, and it's incredible the influence there. The difference, human to human influence, right? And so when you look at something like, obviously an AI influence would be something, far different in my opinion than that. But obviously AI's taken it from somewhere else too. So it's a whole uncharted, for me, it's a kind of an uncharted thing that's obviously, it's more than off the ground at this point. Do y'all feel?
I was gonna say, you mind if my thought came back to me that the siren took away from me?
Go.
So I read in a book earlier this year that said that creativity is probably going to be the most important that it's ever been. And it's before the whole AI situation or phenomenon came. And I started to think about that, and I'm like, it's so true, because everybody that you hear in the AI space, the majority of them say the power is in the prompt, right? You could give a prompt, say, for instance, to DALL-E or to Midjourney and say, I want you to make a purple horse. But somebody who's able to break down, I want to see it from an aerial shot or a 35 millimeter lens. There's a certain nuance that requires creativity. I get excited when I see that, because then I know that I'm going to use it a lot different than maybe one of my peers or someone who is probably, maybe coming from an exploitive point of view of trying to just basically borrow art. But I'm like, no, my creativity is more valuable than it's ever been. That's the only thing I was going to add.
No, it's great. Are there things that you feel like AI hasn't been able to do well for y'all as you use the technology, that it hasn't been able to deliver for you?
I think the biggest thing I've found when experimenting with having it write songs is have what feels like a unique voice, where I feel like when I turn on the radio, I'm obsessed with the Songwriters of Nashville and everywhere, where you know them well enough to go, oh my gosh, that's a DeSTEFANO song, or that's a whoever song. And I think with specifically ChatGPT, you can't really tell that it is like one unique thing. It just does sound like a lot of thoughts put together. And I think that's something that is so special about songwriting in itself, is that there is like a unique touch to it that right now ChatGPT doesn't have.
Sure.
Yeah, but no, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, I was answering the question again. But
You can disagree with me.
It's not even that. It's not even. No, I was trying to think. I was having a conversation in my head. I'm sorry. I was disagreeing with myself. So there are things that I feel like it does fall short of when specifically using a chat GPT. There's times where I'm like, okay, I'm never using this verbatim. Like my creativity won't allow it. I just read this and I'm like, this is the most, I could have Googled this. This is bland. But then I started realizing like, no, that's a call for me to be more creative with my prompt. For instance, I didn't know what the heck reverse polarity meant. Then I said, ChatGPT, explain this in the voice of Bernie Mac. I know what reverse polarity is now. You know? I was going through the process of getting my LLC, and I got to a point where I was like, it just started to sound very legal, even when I Googled it. I said, okay, ChatGPT, I'm a very intelligent human being, but could you break this down to me like a fifth grader? Sure. You and your friends have a cookie business. Thank you. That's all. I mean, just say it for what it is. So, yeah, there are some shortcomings just on face value, because and it's obviously advanced the more, even as we speak, but I do feel like a lot of that falls back on me to be more creative with the prompts, because it's so crazy. There's days that I'll ask it things about my YouTube channel one day, and then I just switch around 2 or 3 phrases, and the next day it's a completely different answer. So I kind of put that pressure on myself.
Curtis and I were talking earlier during the legal panel, rather. It was incredible, by the way. Come on, about copying the terms and service into ChatGPT and having it explain it in layman's terms, so that you know exactly what you're getting into. So there you go. You can utilize it in many different ways. I mean, I think back to, you know, like when loops started really becoming prevalent, right? So, you know, it's like, who created the loops? You can kind of put those loops together in certain ways, but you know, this is kind of a progression of that. And even we talked, you know, before back in the green room about how, you know, what it must have been like for people when vinyl records, you know, started to get cut. You know, you look back and you go, well, now I don't even have to go and listen to a live orchestra anymore. Now I can just hear something on a record player. I feel like there's probably in some ways a parallel of some of the tools that AI allows us. Anna, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think it's such a weird concept to think about, but I have a friend who was writing copy for different businesses to basically have optimized like SEO when you search for companies on Google. And as AI started to come about, there were people within the company that started to use ChatGPT to write these articles for this company to save time and be able to complete more articles. And there was a minute where I feel like my friends and I were like, you're going to get fired. Like, that does not seem like that's okay. And they had an end of the year meeting, and the head of the company said, if you're not using ChatGPT to create these articles, we're behind as a business. We want you all to learn how to be a prompt creator and utilize ChatGPT in a way that allows our business to succeed. So I think it's not that it's going to take away jobs from songwriters or copywriters, fill in the blank. It's just going to create a different type of job that creates something similar, but the means is different.
Controversial take. I'm warning you now. I think there are certain artists, and I say this from a very artsy-fartsy place, right? As an artist of 20 years, I love what I do. I think there's certain artists that I've met along the lines that have done a really great job of being a generic version of someone else. I'm not concerned about getting replaced because I don't know what I'm going to do next. I bank on human beings being illogical. Right? This is the first time since 1987 that vinyls have outsold CDs. Why? In 2023, why is that? Because we just make illogical decisions. We buy for 2 different reasons. Every human being buys for 2 reasons. 1, to avoid pain, or to attract pleasure, to have pleasure. It's the only 2 reasons. So if those are the parameters, there's always an opportunity to sell things like physical product because, like I said, we're illogical. So when I think of it from that standpoint, I'm like, yes, as things advance in technology, as people adapt to it, I also see 2 things happening. Those generic versions cannot be a better generic version than ChatGPT. That's its role. It sources information. It finds all the things that make someone who they are, and then gives you this generic version. Well, that's what I feel like some of the generic artists have been doing. And I feel like now there's an opportunity for them to pivot and to really get into what is they're really passionate about within music or the music business. But for every con that I think of, I just think of like there's been examples of this before. My pops always says like history repeats itself. This is not the first time we've dealt with this. I imagine that a lot of people who are, especially on my YouTube, they hate when I talk about AI, but I have to do it because I know that in 15 years, they'll be the ones buying courses to learn about the things we're telling them right now because their jobs require them to know about these things. So it's an exciting time to me.
Have you all utilized Voicify AI at all? For all y'all that aren't familiar with Voicify AI, it's essentially uploading a vocal and it turns it into whoever you'd like it to sound like. And I'm curious to know if either of y'all have utilized Voicify as a tool.
No, I haven't.
Not Voicify, but hearing Taylor Swift rap my lyrics is hilarious, by the way. That's hilarious. Like, that's a part of my sense of humor, too, is that as a kid, I was the kid that watched Demolition Man and got excited about the future. I watched the Jetsons and got excited about the future. So there's a part of me that's kind of like curious about even the scary stuff. I'm like, oh, well, let's see what this can be. But seeing hearing, I think there's also an opportunity for songwriters potentially where instead of you singing a song, you have the opportunity to send a version of the song that's for somebody you're trying to pitch in their voice. I imagine for someone that could be pretty beneficial. For some that could be like, no, I still want to be able to sing that demo. And that's fine. I think it's not an either or, it's an and. You have that option there. So yeah, I've utilized those a few times, just for fun, not to put out.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've found very little pushback from artists as far as hearing their own voices on demos, you know. And again, these are situations where it's, you know, we're not exploiting something, we're just utilizing a tool, you know, in my opinion, arguably no different than, you know, throwing a vocal chain, like kind of a preset vocal chain on a vocal that you've recorded. It's just like, hey, here I got Taylor Swift on this song, or you know, whatever. I had a situation happen a few weeks back. I wrote a song with an artist, and it was a duet, and so he sang the duet part, and yeah, got Taylor Swift on the song, and it was you know, looks like he's gonna cut it. But do you all have any advice? I'm curious about any advice for music creators and utilizing these tools.
I would just say I would encourage people to explore it and find where your personal limit is with AI. And I think, too, through exploring it, you can better have a conversation about it with your fellow collaborators, which I think is really important. And I think why this event is so important, because AI is such a hot topic right now, and it's really easy to make it look very scary and unknown because it is unknown. But the more that you know about it and the more that you can have a conversation about it, I think the better we can advocate for ourselves and our fellow creators.
So my advice is for those that are fearful of it, you've already been in interaction with it, right? To a certain degree, leaving your home and it's saying, "Are you on your way to the gym?" Right? There's a little bit of that technology that's just kind of already been seeping into our daily life anyways. But my advice for any artist that is a little hesitant, find one. Just find one service. And as you get comfortable with it, you'll start to realize there's a foundational language that can translate to multiple platforms. But I'm telling you, when you find, I feel like we're gonna be a generation of hybrid artists that utilize AI and our own creativity, and it's going to present I'm seeing it already with graphic designers who are using their painting skills and their prompt skills to produce things that are like otherworldly. I imagine that's gonna happen in music as well. And as that happens, I just suggest this. Increase the percentages as they make sense. Maybe in the beginning, it's 90% you, 10% AI. But you're gonna find something, and one day you're gonna feel like, for my Super Mario fans, you're gonna feel like Mario with the star. I've had a few of those times. I use like chord generators that are AI based, and just the speed in which I can now deliver my vocal performance because I produce and I'm an artist. I'm in love with it right now. Now, I'm sure there's gonna come a time where there's gonna be cons and I'm like, oh, I was a part of the problem, just like Demolition Man. But I just cannot see it not being a part of what I do, because once again, if I don't utilize it, someone else is gonna be able to do what I am doing at a level and quicker, simply because they have that extra assistance. I'd rather it be you.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, there is a point at which, for me, the creative process, there's a lot of time spent, getting, going down the rabbit hole of the mixing process, or the, even the mastering process, especially for demos. I typically don't master my own projects, but when you look at the potential for using a plugin that is AI and say, hey, I'd like my vocal chain or this particular vocal to sound like such and such, and to give that certain sheen or something on a vocal without having to, to really wrestle with it. Sometimes it's easier than others, right? But in those situations, to be able to really expedite the process that sometimes can be a little bit academic, to just really to utilize those tools in a way that it streamlines that process. Is there when you first started using it, do you feel like there was a point at which it could have done something, or what do you think that it could have done a little bit more efficiently? Is there anything that it can be doing a little bit more efficiently right now?
Specifically speaking with the lyric writing, I spent some time training my chat GPT to know that I live in Tennessee and that I enjoy baking cookies in my free time, and I have a cat named Harry. And so I found that when I then asked it to write a song, it was like, would give me a lyric like, oh, a night at home with my cat Harry, baking cookies, like with nothing to do with the prompt. And it was like, okay, let's not use everything that I have told you about my life. Let's stick to like a non-biased answer almost. So having to ask it to know me less, and then also be less metaphorical overall. I feel like it really aims for the fences with metaphors, and you got to ask it to not do that. Yeah.
So I'm typically a pretty chill person. Do my music, I'm good. Until I get on customer service that is a bot. I don't know if you experience that, but you get on the phone, you're talking, and you're like, I said 4. 4. You start yelling at the phone, how I do at least. That is the same thing I experience sometimes as a frustration with AI, in which I'm like, you are so smart, but you're so dumb sometimes. I type it out in as many ways as I can think, and it's just still feeding me the same generic thing. So I do think that I don't know how that looks in terms of every individual site, but one thing I would love to see improved upon it is for there to be some kind of a study process, so that no matter what prompts you put up, they're adjusted to your personality type, your way of speaking. So imagine if ChatGPT had a survey before you started and said, let me give you a profile. So then that way when I get in there, you're not feeding me an answer that's not for a hip hop artist, but can just be for any artist that puts this prompt in. So I think more personalized opportunities would be awesome. But once again, I do think some of that responsibility still falls on me to keep talking to it. Like I'm telling you, ChatGPT, in weird ways, like I've talked to it about finances and financial literacy, and it just gives me things in a way where I'm like, never thought of it like that.
It's amazing. I mean, it knows everything. To pivot on that, I trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know we're getting off the music thing, but if just asking it, how do you execute a method armbar or mount?
And
it gives you a detail. I mean, the depth it's truly amazing. I mean, it's kind of, there's nothing it doesn't know, it seems like. But thank you all so much for being here. We'll open it up to some questions if anybody has any questions on the creative side.
Check 1, 2. Hi. Do you have anything regarding as artists, as not only songwriters but artists, the other side of that equation? Maybe tools in marketing optimization or PR, or ways that we can democratize those services that you mentioned before. If you could speak a little bit about that.
I would say just kind of testing it out. Like I specifically used it for social media and like I said, putting in like, give me a 30-day social media campaign to promote this song. And some of the ideas were not great, but from that, I did find some ideas that I was like, I love that. I never would have thought about that. So I think just the trial and error of asking it for things, like doing your own research on the side of what should I be doing as an artist, and then plugging that into ChatGPT and pulling from it what you feel like fits your artistry, and then also your budget and your ability to do it.
I can give you one practical one specifically for YouTube. What I started doing was I would finish a video, I would render it out, I would put it in CapCut, do the auto captions, export those captions, and then talk to ChatGPT like it's my assistant. I say, you are a YouTube channel with 1 million subscribers. You specialize in music marketing videos. I want you to study this script and generate high-ranking SEO search term titles for YouTube, as well as tags and a possible description. It will sit there and read the entire script and give you as many choices as you want. So I said, give me 20 more. And I think it's important that you talk to it the way that you would talk to any creative. These are cheesy. I need you to do something that's more in my conversation tone. And you could tell it, study the script that you just saw and write in this style. And it'll do that. So I did that, and I'm telling you, within the first few weeks, I had some of my most viral videos, right? There's a website called Opus Clip that will take a 2-hour video, I think it's up more now, and it will basically generate automatic clips for you for your social media, vertical videos. So if you're doing a podcast, it'll follow the face, it'll clip it up, give you captions, you can establish a style, and it'll give you 10 video ideas based upon clips it made and the likelihood of them going viral. So and that's the time we're living in. So you can imagine why it's so hard to compete with somebody who's doing this. If you're like, no, I'm a purist, I gotta do this, it has to get done. Okay, that may produce one amazing piece of content. This other person is on content piece number 20. And in this era of social media, I mean, it's you have to go through quantity to get to the quality and to get in front of people and be visible. And once again, this makes it so that I don't have to lean so much into my content creation space, and I get to lean more into my music space because these things have already automated the process.
Hello, mine's very brief. My name's Don Panzik. I'm a artist, label, publisher, etc. Anyhow, mine's free. I want to acknowledge all of you guys. Your information has been a wealth for, I'm sure, everybody. But real quick, you mentioned something about a lyrics one, and I didn't quite get what it was.
Lyric Studio.
Lyric Studio.
Lyric Studio. So Lyric Studio is
That's it. Thing.
a few different features on it. So one of them is it's a thesaurus. It's a rhyming dictionary. Those are at its very basic, but the thing that they hang their hat on is being sort of a lyric suggester. Sometimes as writers, we struggle with the first line. I struggle sometimes with the first line whenever I haven't been writing consistently. So what it would do is basically have you pick whatever the topic of the song is, what style of music you make, and it'll start generating you ideas. And they even have like a knob that tells you, it's called the wacky meter. If you want them to be a little bit more wackier, you can do that. So that was a website that was important for me because I had leaned so much into content creation that I didn't release an album for almost 5 years. And of course, there was some insecurities in jumping back into the process. When I tell you, there was one particular day that I had just the worst writer's block, and I just needed one line. I was there by myself, just one line. And I fed it what I had, and it gave me a line. I didn't even use the line, but it sparked another idea that I ended up creating with. That album eventually went on to become the #1 hip-hop album on the iTunes hip-hop charts. So I'm not saying it's directly related to that, but I'm saying in terms of being able to be a DIYer that did my own album cover, that mixed my own project, that wrote my own music and produced my own music, it makes life just that much easier. And for the notion of you need a team. Well, I feel like I have a team that can at least create a template or at least a system so that when I do hire someone on, I can just tell it, this is what's expected. So now add your creativity over the top of that. But Lyric Studio was really important in that process.
Hey, how's it going? Back to the point about demo singing. I have experienced this from other co-writers. You've mentioned they've used probably a similar plugin to what you mentioned, Chris. And as a songwriter, I see the benefit of that. You don't have to shell out a ton of money for a demo singer. Mm-hmm. But also as a demo singer, I'm like, well, shit, I'm out of a job. So how do you see people navigating that going forward? Kind of talking about the ethical line of it, like we're all trying to find ways to not, cut costs in a sensible way without sacrificing quality, but we're also trying to make a livable wage, and I make a lot of my income as a demo singer. And so this kind of technology is a little bit frightening to me, and I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate that in the future. And yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that is the double-edged sword, right? I mean, it's the drum machine and the drummers, right? I mean, I will say that it will never, at least up to this point, for me, it doesn't replace a voice. It's just a convenience that we can utilize, a tool that we can utilize in the moment where we go, hey, what would Morgan Wallen sound like on this song? And then you kind of listen back and you go, well, actually, that doesn't quite sound like something Morgan would sing. Like, this is from my own personal experience with it. It will never replace, your own personal voice up to this point anyway. I guess unless you have your own, you upload your own voice to it, and in which case it will learn it. But yeah, that is the double-edged sword. It's certainly a great question. Do you all have any thoughts on that?
You go for it.
I understand completely where you're coming from, because this was a concern I had as a producer when I started to see some of this technology able to kind of mimic even the swing of my drums, which is something I hang my hat on, right? The style of my drums and the swing of my drums. But then what I realized was that it's always one step behind. It's always one step behind. Yeah, it can make predictions based upon the habits that I've had, but there's so many interactions that I have because I'm a creative, and I get creative about where I'm going next. I'm forever evolving. If anything, AI has given me like a kick in the butt to be more creative than I've ever been before. So now, instead of using one, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but instead of me using one channel to promote or to showcase my art, it's forcing me to say, okay, well, how can I use TikTok as a 38-year-old? How can I use TikTok to work for me? And the ideas that are getting generated are once again putting me in my happy place, which is being creative. So I do understand it, and I do think that a lot of even jobs that I have right now as a content creator, as an artist, as a producer, they're going to shift, but I'm also going to evolve with it. It's not like I'm going to stay stagnant in the process. So I still feel like there's going to always be a demand for the real thing. For instance, if I'm a singer, if I was a singer, I wish, thanks Auto-Tune. If I was a singer and you submitted something off to me and I said, I like the idea, but I really want to hear you sing the bridge like this. It's not always something you can feed, at least at this point, into AI. That's going to be something I can only get from you, from that direct feedback. So once again, I really, as much as people feel powerless because of AI, I feel empowered as a human, because like I said, I just make as creatives, we make illogical decisions every single day. And somehow we end up to the end result. And I'm like, yep, just like I planned it.
Check. You said that you had a script that you fed into. First of all, my name is Johnny. I've never heard of Chat GPS until today, so thank you for sharing all of your trade secrets with me. I'm going to go back home and do my due diligence. Are you concerned about the content that you're giving Chat GPS, GPT, and thank you, and the protection that you have or do not have in this software? Have you had a lawyer read the ELUA or the user rights? Do you know what's going on in the back? And it's taking your stuff, right, and then is it selling it to someone else or allowing someone else to bite, as we used to? And by the way, for for Chris, I started doing loops on 1/4-inch reel-to-reel tape. Yeah, cutting, pasting, and gluing.
Well played.
Smoking a pack of Benson Hedges menthol lights. Woo. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
My concern is all the people that are getting cut out, like this gent said here, But my other concern is that's where the funk is. See, when you gotta ride your bicycle through the snow in the Bronx to go do this, and then you gotta go do that, and then you gotta shine some shoes to make money to have somebody come in and do overdubs, that shit's all gone. To me, that's where the struggle is. That's where the funk lies. But we keep removing it. 2002, I was on the island of Kauai debating someone over Pro Tools. Yeah, and here was his defense. His defense was, and he was from England, Johnny, do you know how hard it is to do a 12-foot loop in the studio for Bono? I said, no, but that's what makes you great. Now, everybody can download a free version of Pro Tools and do a 12-foot loop. But is it going to be like your 12-foot loop? So that's my concern, is we keep making it easier. With convenience comes cost. You know, do you want a Big Mac?
Right.
Or do you want a prime rib steak? It was grass-fed and massaged.
Right.
In Japan. Thank you.
John, yeah.
So, two things I noticed. Yeah, that was definitely round of applause. Two things I noticed that you did in the moment. One, you created one of the most fired prompts for a chat GPT because of the nuance that you gave. So you talked about the necessity, you talked about the importance of snow, you talked about the importance of Bronx. These are things that you feed into a chat GPT, and it's able to better customize the experience for you. So that came from you. Now, in terms of information, I was reaching for my phone because if I was concerned about that, I never would have one of these, right? It's been already studying me. The fact that there's certain words that didn't exist in its library before, slang words that now exist in its library whenever I text friends. So I understand the concern, and I definitely think that it will be a day that I meet it, and it makes me uncomfortable. But at the same time, I look at the upside of it, and I recognize there cannot be upside without some cons in the process. But I do lean on the fact that the description you just gave that made everybody in here feel something, it's because it's real. It's because it's authentic. I always feel like, well, at least at this point in time, that it can only copy what they had in that experience. But you could very well talk to somebody that changes your entire point of view today, and now it has to readjust to your new information. There's too many variables for it to predict. So I just really hang my hat on, we're being asked as creators to be as creative as we've ever been before, because those who have access on Pro Tools to doing the looping system, they don't understand the nuance, probably don't even care, but that nuance is exactly what makes you valuable in this time period.
Well, I think on that we can wrap this up. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thanks to ASCAP. And thanks to Curtis King and Anna Vaus for joining us as well. Thank you guys so much.
Great, thank you guys. Great questions, great panel. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Curtis. That was amazing. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for the team for putting on this amazing day. I just wanted to say this is the beginning of a conversation. This was an incredible dialogue that we started here. It is definitely not the end of the conversation. There is a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more to do. We really implore you all to join us on this journey of advocacy. ASCAP is your family, right? ASCAP is your champion. But we can't do it without your involvement, without these great questions, without your telling us what you want out of AI and so many more issues like Beth talked about earlier. So please stay involved. Please stay involved with us. Engage with your membership reps here in Nashville. Engage with us all over the country. Stay in touch with us through things like Inside Music, our email newsletter, through our socials. Please follow us. That we have an AI page on ASCAP.com. If you just go to ASCAP.com/AI, or also the ASCAP Lab. And again, see and learn more about what we're doing and experimenting in AI with these companies. So again, please stay involved. Please stay in touch, and we'll be talking a lot more about this in the days and weeks and years to come. So thanks again for joining us, everybody.